Hello, I'm Mark Bolton. If you work for a bank, this may not be news to you, but banks are not very popular. Nobody wants to work for banks anymore, not particularly anyway, and generally they have reputational problems with the public at large. You may also know that there's a world of fintechs out there, 6,000 at the last count, and growing every day, that are trying to chip away at the profitable areas of your business. Now, what they want to leave you is working as a kind of a utility, operational, but not really making any money. And with the damage done by regulation or the effects of regulation over the last few years, that's looking increasingly like a major risk. Effectively, as far as you're concerned, there is a war going on against banking. It started many years ago by us, the people, when we asked our politicians to make rules to punish the banks and to get back some of the money that was used to bail them out. And it's been prosecuted through the regulators who've imposed rules and new regulations. Now, what's going to eventually kill the banks off, if they are indeed get killed, will not be the regulations, it will be the fintechs. It will be the free market that does it. How are you going to survive? Well, if you think of your operational staff from the front office all the way through to the back office, from the tills in a retail through to payments processing at the back end of the business, then you need to think in terms of those people as civilians. And what you're going to need is a military, a change military. Now, if you don't already have one, then you need to build one. If you already have one, then you need to determine whether it's the right composition, the right structure, and the right individuals to ensure that you can help change your organization, your bank, over the next few years quick enough to outpace the oncoming wave of fintechs. And you've got to do a lot of change. You've got to start new businesses. You've got to kill some old ones. But more importantly of all, you've got to transform many of your existing businesses so that they can compete in a low-cost, high-volume way with the coming fintechs. You've got to re-engineer processes. You've got to build new teams and organizations. And probably the single most critical thing you're going to have to do is deploy new technology and retire legacy technology. Your change military needs to be professional. If you've got a great big standing change organization with hundreds or even thousands of people in it, you've got the equivalent of a conscripted army. It's going to be low quality, it's almost certainly going to be inflexible, and it's a lump of fixed cost that's constantly in the crosshairs of the CFO every time he looks across the bank to determine where costs can be cut. So you have a problem. Now, my 25-year career has convinced me that the very best change people are not conscripts. They're not even regular troops. They're mercenaries. They're contingent workers. And they come from consultancies, and they come from the independent contractor market. Now, the big consultancies, a little word of warning, tend to offer less experienced staff. They offer certain other things. Now, it doesn't mean don't use them, but you just need to be aware of that when you're using big consultancies. And separately, I'm going to do a piece of research work and thought leadership around how to engage with big consultancies on an effective basis. But when you're designing the change organization for your bank or your company, you need to keep it lean. And you need to think about under your chief change officer, and if you don't know what that is, then have a look at my article, The CEO is Dead. But underneath your chief change officer, you need a very, very small group of senior officers. They need to be top performers. You only need 3 to 6 guys, girls or guys, it doesn't matter, girls or guys who are able to lead change and partner with key areas of your businesses. So 3 to 6 people should be able to do that. Under them, you may need a little more hierarchy, but not much. They need to be at least managing director level or executive vice president, depending on what badges and titles you use in your organization. They need to be well compensated. If you're paying any of them less than $500,000 a year, you've got the wrong people. They're not at the right level. They don't have the skills and experience. To supplement them, you need a head of project management office, a PMO head. That's going to be the person who oversees that whole organization, brings resources in to support your individual projects and programs, can provide all of the necessary governance and MI infrastructure around individual projects and programs, and more importantly, they can bring the whole picture together so that you can see how individual battles are progressing and consolidate the position to see how the overall military campaign is progressing towards changing your organization. That role is crucial. Don't skimp, get the best in the marketplace. And finally, you should think about having a business manager who is effectively the COO for the change division, whose role will be to look after things like HR, finance, and technology, that as it applies to change. And they will partner with your overall company's HR, finance, and technology. One of the other things I've become convinced of is that career management for change professionals is pretty much a waste of time. Career change professionals, by their nature, are independent. They work very typically on a contingency basis. And frankly, they can manage their own careers far better than you can. And ultimately, that's where the responsibility lays, with the individual to manage their own careers. Now, one prior client, they had built a large change organization of several thousand people. They had all the corporate paraphernalia that HR imposed on them, of vision and goals and 360 reviews and bonuses and PowerPoints. And you know what? The whole thing was pointless crap because it just didn't work. You cannot impose a career structure on an organization that by its nature needs to be very fluid, full of independently thinking people who are turned on by fast, exciting, unpredictable work, don't necessarily want to be stuck within a large corporate career structure. What change people like, what the best change people like, is to be well paid for doing a great job. Give them the check, they walk away. They're mercenaries. So they're not interested in badges, they're not interested in titles or Starbucks cards or any of the other corporate junk that the big corporations typically give out. They just want to be well paid for a job well done. Now, if you have a big, static change organization, you're going to have two problems for sure. You're going to have a number of other ones, but the two problems that will always be evident. The first one is you're likely to have a quality problem. You've probably got a lot of inexperienced people in there, a lot of people that didn't fit elsewhere in the organization, and I'll come back to that topic. Effectively, conscripts. The other problem you're going to have is that your high performers in the organization will be in constant demand. They'll always be busy, and you'll never be able to extract them from certain pieces of work with certain business areas to support another project that comes into the pipeline just at the moment that the business wants it. In other words, you're always trying to jam square pegs into round holes. No one's ever satisfied. Neither the people who are doing the work in your change organization, nor the business units that are buying your services. If your business customers aren't happy, what they will do is they'll call their buddies up in PwC, Ernst & Young, Accenture, KPMG, and they'll say, I've got a problem. I can't seem to get support from my change organization internally. Can you come in and have a chat to me about it? Now, an organization like PwC has 200, 300,000 people in their resource pool. You can guarantee that they can find the skills that that business unit is looking for. Even if you internally have a resource pool of a couple of thousand people, they're 100 times the size. So you're never going to compete against the big guys. And what the business unit will get from one of the big consultancies, they get reliability and they get quality, even though it's more expensive. But worst of all is a situation I've seen in one organization in particular where managers, particularly middle managers from some of the business units, have been exited from the business unit. The business unit doesn't want to go to the trouble and expense of laying off maybe a 20 or 25-year veteran, and so they pushed them in change, selling them into change on the basis that, don't worry, they know their business, they're going to be an asset to you. I call this the middle management hospice syndrome, and it's prevalent in some organizations, and it's a disaster. What you will end up with is a lot of senior, quite expensive, end-of-career types who no longer fit with the organization. They're not bad people, it's just that their careers at that organization really should be over. Moving into change, they know the business, but they have a poor reputation in the business, and they do not have a lot of credibility in the business, but they know absolutely nothing about change. Now, one example in particular I'm thinking of involved two individuals being pushed out of business areas into change and ended up being sold right back to those business areas to lead a major regulatory program with legally mandated deadlines and times. Well, after 18 months, they could not get their programs out of design and build. They just couldn't do it. They didn't have the skills to do it, because they always had the temptation as business people to keep tinkering with the requirements, adjusting things, changing things, making it a bit better. Meanwhile, the clock was ticking. Now, in that particular instance, the jury's still out. We don't know what the outcome of that's going to be. But that could result in a loss of tens of billions of dollars to that organization unless they're able to deliver those deadlines on time. So, in summary, build yourself a small, lean change organization under a chief change officer. You need 3 to 6 highly capable, business partners at the managing director or EVP level. You need someone to head up the PMO organization, and you need somebody as a business manager. Pretty much everybody else should be hired in resources, mercenaries from the marketplace. You bring them in, you bring the best in, you build a bench of them, of people that you know and have worked with multiple times. You use them, and when the piece of work is complete, you let them go. You retain the knowledge and the learning in the organization through your officer core, and it's only that 8 or 10 people that you really need to focus on in managing careers. It's an awful lot easier than trying to manage 2,000 careers. I hope you enjoyed the piece. I look forward to your feedback, and I hope you enjoy the accompanying article.